Hey everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit, one half of the team that powers DungeonSwag.com. Cut that fan off. So we've painted 2 minis up, and we have some more to do. What we have left is this sick dude with the hammer and shield, this dude with the giant axe, this dude with like a great axe, and this dude with the eye patch and the sword. So we're going to roll the die, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's how we're going to pick. And if I roll a 5 or 6, we'll ignore it and roll again. So it's a 1. Oh man, I am most intimidated by painting this guy. He has a lot going on, and there's a lot of inside areas there. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to start doing the best we can. I'm going to actually lighten him up a little bit. He's a little too bright for me. Or, I'm sorry, he's a little too dark for me. So we're going to get in some of these crevices and cracks so I can see the detail better. I'm just going to lighten him up. Now I have the garage door open again, so let's hope that none of my exceptionally loud neighbors start being exceptionally loud this early in the day. I don't mind them being loud. It's a free country. I want them to enjoy themselves, but I also would like to not have to listen to a bunch of yorping about all the time. All right. We're going to lighten up that hammer some for sure. Because I think what I want to do is I want to make like this, the square part in here. I'm going to try to see if that can be made into wood. I don't know if it's going to work. But it might. I want to get his face lighter so that the skin tone works out. Oh, he's got a little ponytail. That's nice. I'm going to get behind the shield a little bit and see if there's any wood detail back there we can use. Yeah, there is. Nice. I'll tell you what, Sven is a very talented artist, and all this stuff just looks so good. I'm going to lighten up some of that ground there so I can see what's going on, even though I made it. We could get up under his arm. I think that'll do what we want it to do right there. Get some of this in there. I don't even know what that is. That's just decoration, I guess. So he's got a bear on his shield, it looks like. And he's got a fur cloak. So let's start with... Let's start with some of the inside stuff. And let's get his inside clothes done. So I'm going to use this Cloudburst Blue. And I know we've done like a brown and a black on the interior, but I want to do, you know, some different stuff. I don't want it all to be the same. So we're going to come in here, pull it out, get in here and get some of his clothing. That looks like some exposed arm there, so that's going to be skin. There are some leather straps in here. If we can reach in and get them with a small brush, we will. If we can't, then we won't. Move around here to get where you can see a little better. I put this tape here to remind me that you guys can't see what I'm doing. Okay, let's get up under there. Now that should be like an armor piece, I'm thinking, yeah. So we'll have to come back and tap that with some silver. Let's get his butt crack. Now he's got a similar armor thing where the bottom of his boots, or bottom of the boot part there, like the pant leg is kind of metal. So we're going to have to deal with that when the time comes. Hold on, there's a spider web. Let's get it. All right. Now, if you're getting this on the armor parts, the metal, don't sweat it. Because, you know, we're going to come back and we're going to hit those with some metallics. So we're not going to be sweating that stuff. And then that bottom part of that boot is metal. And then we have those straps. Now, on one of the miniatures, I didn't realize it until I got it upstairs and started looking at it. I had missed the straps on number 2 on the back of his boots, but it actually doesn't really, it's not noticeable and it looks okay. so I'm not going to go back and sweat it. All right, so that's flesh on that arm, and this arm is material. All right, I think we got all the cloth there. Let's get the inside of this pauldron, the inner arm part of this pauldron, and do that in this blue as well. So, cuts down on the amount of colors we have to try to make look okay together. And we'll rinse that brush. All right, so we got his clothing done. And it's just blue. And it's nothing too fancy. You can see with the speed paints really get in there and make it look decent. Now we're going to come back and we're going to do I think we're going to do behind his shield next. We're just going to get this dark wood and get a tiny dot of that and come behind his shield. And it doesn't matter if we get it on the sides because we're going to come back and do those in metal. But you want to try not to get it on his hands, because his hands are going to be either a glove or they're going to be flesh. So if you can avoid that, do that. If you have a steady hand. Anything we don't have to come back and paint white again, we're going to consider that a win. And there's just one part of the shield. There we go. Alright, so inside the... Oh, I got some right on his darn head. There we go. We have some white paint here. We're just going to come back and touch his head up. Alright. So we're going to do our metallics now. We're going to switch to our metallics. Let me put some of this away. Dark brown, put it away. Cloudburst blue, put it away. Let's rinse out our brush. All right, so the metallics, there's a lot of metallic here. And it might be best to save that for last as I'm looking. So let's... Oh, I got brown right on his darn pant leg there. All right, we're going to come back in. We're going to hit that with some white. Oh, that's pant leg on his... Oh, it doesn't matter. That's armor. Oh, well. Let me rinse my brush out. Let's start again. All right, so we'll do his cloak. And that dark brown from the shield looked pretty good, honestly. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to paint it like a gray down. So let's get that. What's that one color we had? Stone? Dark stone? Yeah, dark stone was sharp. Okay, we got dark stone here. I really like this color a lot. We're going to get in here with that. We're going to darken this up. We're going to get a little bit of water, and we're going to thin that around. Okay? Make that real thin. We're going to come in and paint that. And then we're going to have some spots where it pulls a little bit. We're just going to spread that around to make that go away until there's no pulling left. Now make sure when you're doing this here, and you have a mini, especially like this one where there's some deep cracks, make sure you get in there with that, with this real thin. Get in there, because when we come back and do the metal, we don't want to paint on the cape accidentally. So make sure that area is colored in and not white, so we don't have to come back with a wash and try to hide mistakes. I mean, we can come back with a wash if we want to, but I try not to do that. It just depends on the mini. A lot of my older stuff I was very grim darky with. I've lightened up my painting a lot because I noticed that it looks kind of more exciting on the table when it's a little bit lighter. I'm sorry. Get up under that cape. There we go. Oh, I got some on the outside. We'll come back and wipe that off. Okay. Now there's this deepest little crack back here that I can't get into, and that's okay, because you won't see it. All right, we got our cape looking good. Let that dry, and then we'll come back with a dry brush of lighter gray on that. We can do the base now. So on his base, we have like 2 small rocks and the dirt. So let's do that dirt first. I'm going to get out the burnt umber and use it because it looks a lot better, I think, than any of the other browns I have without mixing. And I don't want to have to do a bunch of mixing here. We're just trying to paint a mini and have fun. We're not trying to do a bunch of extra work we don't need to do. Somebody is in my driveway. I hope they're just turning around. Yes, they are. Nice. Not that I'm anti-visitor, but I'm definitely not pro-visitor. I really love the effects you get with this baking soda on these 1-inch bases. Because if you think like a grain of sand compared to a miniature, like if it's a bigger grain of sand, that's big. It's really big. Like it's like the size of a chunk of gravel you might pick up and throw at, you know, somebody turning around your driveway or something. So let's get in here and make sure we get all that base brown. I think we got most of it. If you miss a little bit, that's okay. If you get some on the boots, that's okay. We're going to be painting those metallic. I think we got most of that in there. Nice and brown. Let's do it. Let's go. There is this thing that blows my mind. It's like people in videos and in shorts and stuff on Facebook and YouTube and such. I don't really have TikTok, so I don't know about that, and I don't have a lot of other stuff. But they say, let's go, and they like make it all amplified and fancy, and I just cannot understand what they're going for there. So let's do the handle here of our sword, of our axe. We'll just get some of this brown since we have this out, and we're going to be putting a wash over this anyway, or a speed paint over top of this anyways. So we can just paint all the parts that's going to be wood. And if there's a little piece on there that's a metal band, that's all right. We're just going to hit that too, and we'll come back and cover it up later. That's going to be all metal, so I don't even see the point of putting wood on that. All right, so we got that pretty much covered. There's one little spot back here. Here we go. All right, we're kind of stuck at metal right now, but I want to do something with that. So let me find what browns we have laying around here. Let's see, I got monster, oak, fur, and leather. Let's try this leather and see what that looks like. I don't think we've used that for anything lately. Let's get rid of this. Oh, my buddy and I were, after I did that video yesterday, we were painting together just for fun, a scorebook together, half a DungeonSwag, and his wet palette dried out. And I want to tell you guys something about wet palettes. If you're using a wet palette, do not use crappy, whatever water you have. Try to use distilled or deionized water or some kind of filtered water that doesn't have a bunch of minerals and stuff in it when you're rehydrating that. You do not want anything chunky or strange that can put chunks into your paint. Don't use rinse water. And it's good to clean your wet palette occasionally too. Like I said, I stopped using a wet palette. If I were doing like, if I were trying to do something pretty significant paint-wise, I might pull one out and rehydrate it and use it, but I have, what, 2? 3? I think I gave one away. I have 2 over there. But I just, like I said, I don't use them because they're just They're good. They're okay, but they don't really add much to my painting. I'm not at such a level that I really feel like it's bringing a lot to the equation. So we've used that leather brown to kind of pull that out, and we can darken that up when that dries with a speed paint. And let's see if there's anything else brown on him that we want to do. I don't think so. So I think we're kind of either at the point of where we're going to commit to doing metal, or we want to do our try to do our skin. I like to do skin last if possible. So let's go and start on some of the metal. We'll put this brush aside for now. Let me clean that out a little bit because I don't know how I rinse that. There we go. Just get a little bit of saddle soap in there. This is not saddle soap. This is brush cleaner, the Masters brush cleaner and preserver. I call it saddle soap, but because saddle soap kind of comes in like a similar container, but larger. Yeah, I think it's time to come back with the metals. Okay, so today we're gonna use the same concept. We're gonna do that bluish gray over top of metal, but we're gonna start with the armor with a grim or gunmetal. I like a darker color, and see if we get a different effect with it. I think we will. You can even darken these up more if you want to mix. You can really do a lot with your metallics. You can make metallic greens, but one of the best ways to do like metallic that you want a specific color is to do a really bright metallic and then do very watered down thin layers over it instead of actually mixing it. One, because it saves paint. And even though paint's not that expensive, I think these pots are $4 to $6 each on the non-metallics or the non-speed paints. But it can be a waste of paint. Can be a waste of paint. I'm not saying it is a waste of paint. I'm saying it can be. Okay. Get that pauldron in there good. We got the wrist guard in there good. I'm sure if I reach back into my knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons and military history, I could probably find every name for every one of these in a book, or if I thought about it long enough or talked it in the right context, it would come out. So let me tell you about hammers, why I like hammers as a weapon. So in real life, you're not walking around in full plate armor, right? If you had full plate armor well, it's actually kind of like post-medieval Renaissance times, chances are you were only using it on horseback with a cavalry lance, not one of those really, really long lances, but an actual cavalry lance. And you were a tank. So having a hammer with a spike on it or something was probably the only way someone was going to get you down quickly, unless they took their horse out from under you and made you immobile. And if you look at the armor on the people versus the armor on the horses, well, putting full plate armor on horses wasn't great because it hindered the mobility and the comfort of the horse, and it made the level at which you had to discipline a horse to keep it in line with what you're trying to accomplish at that point significantly more difficult. So plate armor with a hammer and spike, with a strong cross-section spear, things like that were great. So in D&D, where you don't see a lot of fancy stuff like that, where there's like a very limited amount of weapons. That's why I like when I made my own role-playing game, I made generic classes of weapons, like piercing, slashing, bludgeoning weapons. But then, of course, you can specialize in multiple types of weapons and combine and kind of get different bonuses and effects with your progression. But D&D has a limited range of weapons, but the hammer is there, even though it's not great. And in many forms, it comes as the mace in D&D, not a hammer or a morning star, which would have similar stats to a spiked hammer. It can do bludgeoning or piercing damage, or bludgeoning and piercing damage. So I like hammers because, like, this one has little spikes on it. If you were to walk up and hit a dude in plate armor with this, it would pierce through his armor and push his armor into the wounds and create damage that is very difficult to just sustain and carry on. If you had a dude wearing chain armor with this, chain armor, even with a layer of padding under it, or, you know, some kind of something to take some of the percussion away from a blow, well, you hit somebody with a hammer. A small hammer does concentrated blast to one area, enormous amount of potential energy there. And a large hammer would just do widespread wanton damage that you can't absorb. Then leather armor is very similar. It's not going to do much. Padding armor, actually, I think the mobility provided by padding armor and the ability to try to get out of the hammer swing's way is your best bet. And I would guess that throughout history, many armor sets were based more on stopping a critical hit, or like, you know, a hit that could instantly put you down, than they were actually providing real overall coverage and protection. Mobility was probably more crucial in design of most armors. And if you look in different cultures, you'll see that. Like even the Roman legionnaires, even though they're often shown wearing these like breastplates and stuff, well, I've seen like in museums and other places and on videos people made where the chest plates they made were actually not bronze or brass or anything like that. They were often leather, and then they were painted so that from a distance it was hard to tell what material they may or may not be. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this dude's armor. He's got plate on him, right? But it's not full plate. It doesn't cover his joints and stuff like that. This guy is made for some mobility. Sven takes this stuff into account when he makes minis. He's just a really talented artist. He really is. I can never say enough good things about Sven. There's some cloth in there that we need to come back and hit with red so that he matches the rest of this set, and I didn't realize it. And then on his chest here, I am fairly certain this is like a metal chest guard. So we need to come back here and hit that with metallic, where I missed it before, thinking it was something else. So, yeah. Hammer's one of my favorite D&D weapons because it's so versatile. It should be good against every type of defense and armor. Trying to block a hammer swing, and now I'm telling you, no one in the world swinging a hammer like that unless you're like Mark Henry or one of the world's strongest men. But if you were to swing a hammer of a reasonable size, like a sledgehammer, trying to block that, even with a shield, is devastating. It is not going to go as you hope it will. It is going to be brutal. It is going to be violent. It is going to be unsatisfactory. I guess my second pick would be axes. When it comes to trying to overcome different kinds of armors and stuff. But the maneuverability of a sword, honestly, man, every weapon has like their pros and cons. They really do. It's hard to even think of what my favorite weapon could be just because there's so many options out there and so many combinations. Dual wielding. I will tell you from experience, dual wielding is something that is not often what they portray it to be in movies. If you're swinging two swords, it is more likely that you would swing those swords on a consistent plane with some distance in between them, so you can use the same body movement to create the same amount of leverage behind that swing, and hope they can only block some of your attack. When you see these people going and stuff, no, you're not going to do that. You can't get any serious momentum or power behind a swing doing that. And a bunch of easy parries and you're swinging a lot, that's just going to tire you out. So I have some plans of what I want to do with this shield here, since it is pretty sick. What I think I want to do is I want to do the faceplate of it in silver, and then I want to come in and I want to do the decorative parts that come out with a copper, and then hit it with like an orange speed paint to give it like some texture and some, I don't know what to call it, some decor. And then there's like a banner on the front of the shield here too. And I'd really kind of like to hit that with that red so it ties in with the rest of our unit we're doing here. So we're starting to come together. We're starting to look like we know what we're doing. The metal on this, I am going to do these back parts with the silver, with this darker silver. When it comes to the actual hammer parts, I'm going to do something a little different. Now we have these two little metal rings right here. So we want to not really paint those, just touch those so that they pop, but we don't want it to subdue the fact that there's wood in between there. And we don't have to hit those perfect. We just want to show that we recognize they were there and that we think it looks nice. All right, so I think we got all... Oh, well, we didn't. It's a beautiful day. I don't know if any of y'all play that Pokemon Go, but all 4 of my sons are going to be here today. My 2 little ones that still live at home. And then my 2 older boys are coming after my second oldest gets off of work, because he works today, unfortunately. And we are going to go with my wife on some Pokemon walking and catching some Pokemans. I started calling them Pokemans to irritate people, and it has just stuck and been a thing that I have enjoyed thoroughly. Telling my entire family I'm going to catch Pokemans, even though I know darn well they're not called Pokemans. Alright, so this is Weapon Bronze, and it's definitely got more of a copper vibe than a bronze vibe to me, because a lot of the bronze I've seen is more like subdued and brownish, but this will do it. Let's put that gunmetal away. Alright, rinse our brush a little better. Alright, let's get this. Thin it out a little bit on that side there, pull it in tight, and let's hit this bare head with this. It's going to look sharp, maybe, or it's going to look dumb. It's going to look something. So if you want to listen here for a minute, I can tell you a little bit about DungeonSwag and how we kind of choose what we're doing. So we have different kinds of boxes we kind of set up. So we do like hero boxes, and we try to do those once a year, and it has like a variety of different kind of people that could represent someone in your adventuring party. You got, maybe a couple ranged characters, a couple melee characters, a couple casters or whatever. We try to put, 6 or 7 minis in there that can really round out your party. We go through from many months of backlogs of miniatures and try to pick ones we haven't used before. Well, we do pick ones we haven't used before because we don't want to send out repeats in the monthly boxes. So that is one kind of box. Then we do like monster boxes that are kind of the same deal as the hero boxes. And it might have a couple different types of monsters in it. Maybe you have a couple goblins, maybe a couple minotaurs or something. And then we have like unit boxes, which is what we fill most of the year up. Like, so you might get a box of all orcs, or you might get a box of these armored dudes, these knights. And that's so if you're playing any kind of war games, you have like kind of units you can paint together and use. And if you're using D&D, you can use them as a bad guy faction that they continuously encounter, or whatever it may be, or your TTRPG. I shouldn't say D&D, because I notice as time goes on, D&D is kind of fading out. So anyways, which actually makes me kind of sad, because, I think we started playing D&D when I was 11, and now I'm 44, and I've been DMing pretty much since we started. We had probably one of my best friends in the entire world shows up with, he's like a brother to me. He shows up with a Dungeon Master's Guide for Advanced, and I was saying second the other day talking to one of my videos, but I went back and looked. I have it upstairs. It was Advanced. He came with an Advanced Dungeon Guide, and a D20, and we had no miniatures, we had no anything, and he ran us through an adventure, and all of us realized that we could never again not wish to be in a world full of insane magical swords and other fantastic imaginary things. We all knew that that was an escape from the world, and to this day, many of that group of our original friends that played are dead. Unfortunately, not died in campaign. I mean, like, gone to the next level. And of those of us that are alive, the 3 of us that are still alive from the original 8 or 9 of us that were playing, 2 of us play in my group, and another guy played in our group for a long time. But when you grow up, you kind of have differences in opinions, and maybe there's certain things you don't want to happen around your family. So we kind of parted ways with that fella, and I still care about him. I just can't have him around my family. And he's one of my oldest friends in the world. I consider him a friend, or I consider myself a friend to him to an extent. But if he called me, chances of me running to go save the day are pretty slim because lines were crossed. Okay, so we're going to have to lighten up that cape for sure now while we're letting that dry. Then we're going to come back and work on the weapon, and then we're going to do all the highlighting on the armor. So let's let that dry, and let's work on this cloak. We had a good friend. He's deceased now. I don't know if he was a good friend. He was kind of a jerk. Okay, so let's go back and say we knew a guy who was an exceptional real-life rogue. We called him Weasel, actually. He was the main reason as small, young teenagers with no money from a very impoverished area, we were able to have everything. He would go to the bookstore at our local mall, and he would go in there, and he would come out with whatever we needed. And that's just kind of wrong, but how it was. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to capture some of this and just break up the one coat that we had there of the dark stone with this necromancer cloak color. And I'm not dry brushing it or painting it. I'm just making different tones. And then I'm going to lighten that up a little bit with some of that white I had from earlier. Not too light. I don't like mixing with my good brushes, actually. Sorry. And then we are going to do like more of a realistic and true dry brush. But as we get higher up on the cloak, we want to catch more of it. So up high, we're catching more. And as we come down, we just want to catch a little less. Bring a more realistic muted tone to that. And then we're going to do the same thing again. Get a little more white. And then on here, we're just going to only do the top part, I think. We'll see how it looks. Yeah, we're just going to do the top part. And then there's a little piece that sticks up right there. We'll hit that. We'll get around the edge on this side a little bit. And so that's as exciting and as fancy as it gets for that cloak. All right, so we got some other areas that are dry that we can work on. We can definitely do these rocks on the base. For that, we're going to go back to this. I've decided I'm just going to keep using these. This is that craft paint apple barrel. This is the pavement color that I like so much. And we're just going to come in here and we're going to quickly hit those rocks. You don't have to get every inch of them, every section of them. They don't have to be perfect. But you don't want to get it on your brown for sure. You don't want to get it on that shield you worked so hard on. All right. And now we're going to do the red from his loincloth. While that dries. I forgot about that till just now. I got that blood red laying around here somewhere. We'll use this. There we go. Nice. I'm going to grab our starter brush here. This is actually a good brush. It's not one of my smallest brushes, but I do enjoy using it. It's pretty good for... by the way, like I just want you guys to know, like, yeah, I do use a lot of Army Painter stuff, but they didn't give this stuff to me or pay me for this. Like, I just like Army Painter stuff. I've used a bunch of different stuff. At one point in my life, I was literally just painting minis with craft paint because I was so poor. And when I moved up in the world a little bit and I was able to get different stuff, I tried different paints. I tried some Citadel stuff from Games Workshop. Didn't really care for it. Tried some Vallejo or Vallejo. I'm not sure how to say it. Like, based off of dudes I knew in the Army that taught me like a little bit of Spanish, I would assume it's Vallejo. But I hear a lot of people calling it Vallejo. So then I talked about the banner on this shield. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to hit that with the same red. But what we're going to do after we hit this with the red is we're going to come back and do those little lines with the fractional brush and make some gold trim on those, because it looks like it's supposed to have. If you paint a little bit over onto your silver, since we haven't done any real prep work on this silver, you can just come back and hit that with silver again when this dries, which is what I'm going to have to do because I'm bad. I just want to hit this red right here, this little dot right here with that red, because I think it looks kind of like it goes to that. So see where I have the overlap on the shield? We're going to have to come back and clean that up. All right, let's rinse out our brush. Come back to our weapon. So I wanted to use that shining silver on the weapon. And we're gonna just be super careful and not ruin any of the work we've done up to this point. So nice out. You hear the birds chirping? I don't know if you can hear them on the camera there. They are just going nuts out there. They're having the best little day. That was so weird. Why did I say best little day? They're having the best day. They're like obviously in league with the groundhog. They got rid of my beautiful winter. I live in the mountains. And I know how to drive in snow. And truthfully, I really enjoy the winter. For my job, I don't, because cold weather and chemistry don't mix. But in general, I do like the winter is my favorite. I think fall and then winter. I think I only like fall because of Thanksgiving and Halloween, though. Well, I live in West Virginia, so the leaf changing, all the deciduous trees, their leaves dying and turning different colors is actually beautiful. Like, I'm a grown man, and I will tell you, it is beautiful. Like, there are days where you are driving up Route 22 going towards Pennsylvania, and it's breathtaking. You look at it, and you're like, wow, holy stuff. And it's just insane. And I just feel so fortunate to live in an area where I can really experience that regularly, yearly. And there's a bunch of, like, people come here on buses. I'm not joking. They come here on tour buses to drive around and look at our leaves. Now, when I first realized that as I got older, I started kind of laughing, but I can understand why. It is glorious. So I'm going to touch some of those spots there because I did want to make this weapon a little extra. Now you see how this is a little bent, this handle? I was going to straighten that when I assembled him, and it'll hold shape pretty well, really. You can just kind of straighten it, it'll stay that way. But I don't want to. I was thinking to myself, if I had a big hammer with a curved handle, it might actually help for like the downswing to crumble someone's head. So I decided I would keep that. So let's get rid of this. We're getting a big mess going. Let's get our wash rag out of there. It's old t-shirt. It's not a real wash rag. Let's get our tape. Let's take a look at where we are on our mini. So everything is looking pretty good. I mean, for my level of painting, it's good. For yours, it might look like dog crap. We don't know. And this is that runic gray that we've been using. We used it on the other two minis to dye their armor. And it looked pretty good on the finished product. So we're going to go with that. And we're going to start hitting this armor with it. And we talked about this yesterday. But if you get too much in there where it's pulling up too quick and you know it's going to be too dark and overshadow the metallic or whatever, you can just reach in there and pull it out and drag it somewhere else. And if you have too much on your brush to do that, just wipe some off somewhere else you're working on and then bring that over. Now, I don't feel like we're going to get the same effect on this darker armor as we did on the lighter with this blue, with this gray, whatever color this is. Let me see what it's called. Runic gray. I don't think we're going to get the same effect on this darker armor that we got, because the other ones looked pretty sharp. But I want to be able to try some different stuff, and let's be honest, if this unit all joined on the exact same day and were all issued armor on the exact same time, and they weren't in the unit for different lengths of time, and their armor hadn't been cared for differently with different levels of wear and tear, yeah, sure. Under a bunch of extenuating circumstances that don't seem realistic, sure. Their armors might all be identical. But minor changes because of how they're cared for and for when they were made and how much action they've seen, how many times they've been repaired, would cause some inconsistency. So even though they're trying to keep them looking pristine, I'll tell you, in the Army, if you walk up to a bunch of guys wearing the interceptor vests, which I don't even know if they use that anymore, but that was like the plated vest of the time, and you walked up to all of us and looked at them, some of ours were dirtier and cleaner than others, back and forth like that. Some of them were older and more faded. Some of them had wear and tear along the edges. Some of them were brand new and obnoxious and bright and vibrant. So even though we all took care of our equipment and maintained it, and that was part of our job, if you looked at it up close, side by side, there were inconsistencies. Now, a foreign entity walking up on us from a distance wouldn't notice it. From a distance, we all look like we're the same. But once you get up in the mix, you can tell it was not. So I try to keep that in mind when I'm doing like a unit like this, that, you know, the armors are congruent. They were made in the same fashions. They go together. Yes, that's true. But there are going to be inconsistencies. All right, so I think we covered there's a little corner. All that with the blue. And it's going to look sharp. Now let's see what we're going to do about this bear, which should be dry now. So I had thought about using a yellow or an orange speed paint. Well, there's no little bead in this one for some reason. Or it's stuck somewhere, maybe. There's little beads, little metal beads in these. I don't know, it's not in there. To help mix them up and shake them up and keep them stirred. So we're going to try with the yellow first and see if it looks any. Oh, it does look okay. All right, we're going to use that to add some depth to this. And you kind of want to get it all around there. You don't want to miss too much of that. Okay. And in the spots where you want it to be a little deeper, you put a little extra on there to get into the deeper cracks. And then you get, you know, it gives you a natural look for that. So we got to do something with that banner I was talking about. So let's get a fractional brush, like a 5/0 or something, because that's my favorite. Actually, I like the 10/0 too, but it's really small. So the 5/0 fractional brush is just omega tiny, okay? Let me see if I have something to hold it up to that you might recognize. Okay, so this is a standard D&D Mini, and that is how big that brush is next to his arm. It is tiny, but it's really good for this kind of crap. So I want to get some metallic gold. This is called Greedy Gold. It's just like a army painter, like generic golden color. It is actually kind of, well, if you notice, there's paints I keep over on the right side over here and the paints on the left side. Paints on the right side are like the paints I like to use the most, besides the craft paints that they can't be out here, you know. And then, man, I can't even look at this thing and see what I want to do. All right, so when you're doing little stuff like this, imagine that you're not painting, that you were like actively using like a pen or something to do an outline. Okay? Because if you think about it as painting, it makes it way harder than if you think of it as you're just doing a little outline. And I am not like some super artist or anything, but I was able to pick that out and get a look that I wanted. And then I just want to do some more stuff on this shield here. I am not super artistic, but I know how to trace lines. And I think that shield looks all right. So now I want to come back to this this giant hammer. and I wanted to do this bottom part of this this nub or pommel here. I wanted to do that to kind of tie that in with the shield a little bit. And then I also wanted to kind of come around these diamonds on the hammer with that gold as well, just to give them a little more attractiveness. I don't know. See, I messed up a little bit there. I made it too wide. That's all right. It's on the inside. It's not going to be as noticeable. All right, so we have to do skin, and we have to do something with the face plates of that hammer. I don't know what you call that part. The smushy parts. This is like a meat tenderizer hammer too, so that's probably good for fighting like giant bulls or anything else you would think you could make a steak out of, right? We're just at about 45 minutes, so we're going to pick up the pace. We're going to do the skin now. Crusader skin. Now, let me tell you, you do not have to do your skin generic like this. There are, like, I used to be super big into it, into, like, wasting my time, like, 4 or 5 hours on a miniature. But I was also trying to prove something. Now, I tend to I like to keep it under an hour if I can. Can't always, but I try to. Try to keep it under an hour just so it doesn't become an overwhelming task. It takes up my whole time. Gets intimidating to look at a pile of miniatures that need painted and say this is going to take 4 hours, this is going to take 4 hours, this is going to take 4 hours. Okay, so this dude's got on his head here a ponytail thing, and he's got a goatee. So we're going to be real careful about those. And then we know his hands here need done. So we're going to hit his hands. I put too much on there, so we're just going to take it over to the other side where his hand is here. Hit that. Too much still. It's okay. We're just going to drag it around, get underneath here. You don't really see that part that much, but oh, I messed up on the inside. I got his thumb covered. All right, so anyways, too much paint on his hand. We'll just spread it around and get it to a more. There we go. So we got his face here. We have to do something about the goatee and that hair, but we can't do that while it's wet. So let's come back and let's do something about these face plates. And we have to do some dry brushing on our ground too. Let's English. Let's do the ground first. That's too wet. Alright, this is melted chocolate apple barrel. I'm just going to touch the dirt with this inconsistently around it to create the effect that this is a layer of dirt and not a painted miniature base. Okay. So, oh, I can't, sorry guys, I always forget you can't see. So I'm just getting in here and I'm breaking up with a really light drag, kind of like a dry brush, but I'm just dragging it around in different directions. And that could simulate that he's pushed the dirt with his feet some, or stirred up dirt that hasn't been touched for a while, and that's okay. That's all right. And then we're going to do those rocks. So we're just going to keep that brown on our brush for now. We're going to get a light gray. We're going to make a dry brush for those rocks real quick. There we go. We don't want to put an enormous amount of time into these rocks. They're just a little something extra. We can take that real light color there and we can touch it around on our ground, creating some different effects there too. Breaking it up some more. Don't always need a dry brush or a lighter and lighter and lighter. It's like 3-stage tones. Sometimes if you're just playing around, you can find different stuff that looks good. So our ground's starting to look pretty good. You'd think with all these lights I put up here that to quit getting all this shadow effect, it would help, but it doesn't seem to. And I'm just going to bring some of that up on the cloak because I like the way it looked. Doesn't make a significant difference, but it's okay. All right. we have to do the hammer. No more messing around. We have to paint the black ring around the base first. This black ring around the base is a me thing. I like all my D&D fantasy minis and stuff to be black around the base. And then I do my sci-fi stuff with dark gray around the base. And I do my terrain with brown. It's just a consistency thing that you don't have to do. There's a giant bee flying around my garage, just scaring the hell out of me. There's certain things in the world that I don't like to deal with. Sharks. No matter how well trained you are, no matter what kind of a fighter you are, do not fool yourself into thinking you're going to fist fight a shark in the water and win. You should be afraid of sharks. Any insect or creature you have an allergy to, besides cats. If you have an allergy to bees, be afraid, because you could be the toughest dude on earth and a sting could put you in the hospital. I know. I'm not saying I was the toughest dude on earth, but I was a soldier. I wasn't like a punk on the street. But a bee can still put me in the hospital. And then brain aneurysms, if you've been watching Archer ever, that show's old, but it's good. You'll know that brain aneurysms are actually terrifying. Silent killers. Now, crocodiles and alligators in the water, chances are you wouldn't stand a chance. On the ground, if you had a weapon or a stick or something, you might stand a chance. So I guess you can assume that they're not as terrifying, I guess. But they're still pretty terrifying. So I'm getting this Graveler Gray. Boop. Oh, that's way more than I wanted. Never rush. I'm going to pull this out really far. I don't want much of this. And then I want to come over here on the tenderizer part of my hammer. And I want to spread that around. Pull it out really far. What we want to do is we want to just catch that on there and change it a little bit. Not drastically, though. Now, if you let this silver sit overnight and be like the driest it could be, and you come back and do this with a really thin coat of this speed paint, because I just did this on an axe I was doing the other day, it like sucks into the silver almost immediately and creates the most amazing effect. But you could get that same effect just by painting with that color. So I guess I shouldn't say it's the most amazing effect. All right, so let's do the back. We're just dolling up some of that bright silver and trying to catch a little bit of, make it look a little more muted. All right, we got to do, what's left? Oh, he has a ponytail and a goatee. And then we're going to do some lightening up on his skin. And that's going to require some mixing. So I'm going to get my fractional brush. This is a 5/0. And I'm going to do this goatee. And I think I'm going to do it in black. So if you can't see this, it's because I cannot hold the brush up and see what I'm doing in front of the camera. I'm trying to, but it's really far away from me. And I don't think it'll focus for you from where it's at. God, do I hate this part. There we go. So we didn't get his lip. I forgot we can zoom. We learned that yesterday. We didn't get his lip, but I did get some shit on his forehead. But we did get his mustache coated evenly in this really watered down black. I say really watered down because I dipped my brush in water so that I wouldn't make a giant black smear anywhere. Okay. Now there's some kind of hairband or something on there, so we can darken this up a little bit. And then come back and do something about that hairband. thank God. We should darken his beard up a little bit. We'll leave his mustache alone. He doesn't have any eyebrows either. Oh, I'm using a speed paint. That's why it's not doing what I want. What is that? Oh, that's that Gravelord Gray. Okay. I wondered. I was like, man, I watered that down because I thought it was black paint, and it's just lighter than anything. That's all right. We'll leave it light. It looks good. My bad. I'm sorry, everybody. Man, I'm a crackhead. I could not figure out why I wasn't getting... When I knew my brush was wet when I dipped it in here, and I pulled it over, I was like, oh, that's really watered down. Good. I was wrong. I was mistaken. All right, so oh, flesh tones. Okay, so I have some, what is this? I used this yesterday for that other guy. Doesn't matter. Oh, no, I know what I'm going to use. I'm going to use this. Oh, that's the same damn color, isn't it? Tanned flesh. I used barbarian flesh yesterday. I don't think I've used this for a long time, so... We're going to use this tan flesh. We're going to mix a little bit of skeleton bone here. That's really light, right? And we're going to mix a tiny bit of this desert yellow. Okay. We're going to get our brush. Can you see? Yeah. We gotta move this around here. My camera moved. You're like, oh, I'm zoomed out, dumbass. All right, there we go. All right, we're gonna mix this. Lighten that up some. Still a little pink for me. We're gonna get a little bit of that. Yellow. We're gonna bring that up and let's look at that. That is the flesh tone I came up with. We're gonna, on his hand here, we're gonna wipe a lot of that off, and we're just gonna kind of come around here and touch the high raised areas and lighten that up. Do the same thing across his fingers, all the way down to the bottom. Look at that. It's not a bad color, dudes. We're gonna come on the inside here where I actually painted his thumb. We're gonna come back and hit that a little bit. Now we messed up his forehead. We gotta clean that up. Do a little bit more of that we made. We're not going to do his hairband. I'm looking at it and it's pretty small. We're not going to do his eyebrows either. Alright, so we're going to want to lighten that head up. Just another, if I can remember to zoom back out. We're going to lighten his head up just a little bit more because some of that dark shone through from where I got the black on there earlier. We're going to lighten that up a bit more. Try to cover that. I don't know why that shone through so heavily. A little bit of that yellow. And we're going to go a little lighter. A little bit lighter. Not much. Okay, so we're going to need some better coverage on that spot there that I messed up. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to blend this around on his head. Just pull it around. And we're going to bring it down onto his nose. Because you get a lot of reflection surface on your nose. Alright, you guys. Oh, we got a spot back here. It looks a little wonky. Even though it's not going to be that bright normally. We're going to hit that. Alright, so that's what we came up with. That's what we got. We're at about an hour here. We can go ahead and call it. I'm going to dry brush this dude. Or not dry brush, I'm sorry, clear coat this dude. And let's see what he looks like. I think he's going to look okay. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.